Alright, so first of all, welcome and thank you for enrolling in this course. Now, the main purpose of this course is to increase the awareness level of an industry's top management and academia for the ISO standards' significance as a business tool, as well as to enhance their knowledge on ISO 9001, the 2015 version, and to present the standard in its new and revised version of 2015. Now we can kick this off by defining quality. So, what is quality? Well, according to ISO 9000, and of course we're going to talk more and much more about the ISO standard. So, as I said, according to ISO 9000, quality is the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill requirements. So, as I said, the ISO 9000 series of standards is the international standard for quality management. The aim or the goal of this series or family of standards is to aid or help supplier quality assurance and to provide a common, authoritative, and widely accepted standard by which to evaluate and compare the potential of firms to meet acceptable levels of quality and reliability. Now, as I said, this is the definition according to the ISO 9000 family. Now, there are other definitions according to authors or other authors. We've got from the Concise Oxford Dictionary, quality is defined as the degree of excellence. According to Defoe and Juran, it is defined as the fitness for purpose. Now, according to Gocha and Davis, quality is defined as the dynamic state associated with products, services, people, processes, and environments that meets or exceeds expectations and helps produce superior value. According to Phil B. Crosby, quality is defined as conformance to requirements. Now, one thing you should also know is that quality is not specification. Let's take the example of these two cars. As you can see, this is a very luxurious Rolls-Royce car, which is of course very nice, and we've got this French Peugeot 106. Now, this car of course has a high specification, while this one has a low specification. Now, according to Defoe and Juran, the quality is defined as fitness for purpose. So, according to Defoe and Juran, if both cars satisfy the purpose for which they were purchased, then they can both be quality products. So, there is a big difference between quality and specification. So now we know what quality is. Let's talk about quality objectives. Now, ISO 9001 quality objectives should be established in a SMART format. Obviously, SMART is a 5-letter word. Now, S stands for specific. When we say specific, it means that the objectives of course, the quality should be clear enough and specific so that everyone understands and interprets them in the same way. In other words, no matter who reads those objectives, they all come up with the same conclusion. That's for S. As for M, M stands for measurable. When we say measurable, it means that the quality objectives or an objective should be quantifiable and you should be able to track performance to see if you have or have not achieved the desired outcome. In other words, you can say that measurable is kind of like controllable objectives. A stands for attainable, which means that the objectives should be doable and within your organization's reach to achieve them reasonably. In other words, you wouldn't put in an objective or a goal that is kind of impossible to reach according or based on your capabilities. R stands for relevant. It means that the objectives should be realistic, relevant, and consistent with your quality management policy. And as for T, it stands for time bound. It means that the objectives should be quantifiable and have a time frame associated with it. And of course, just like any other goal, when you set a goal, you of course set a date for that goal. So we've introduced the term quality. Now let's talk about quality management, since this is the core of our course. So quality management, to put it in words, quality management is the process for ensuring that all project activities necessary to design, plan, and implement a project are effective and efficient with respect to the purpose of the objective and its performance. In other words, quality management is basically there to make sure that we're doing the activities within the organizations in the right way. So quality management is not a one-time event. It is a process, a repetitive cycle of measuring quality and updating processes until the desired quality is achieved. Now, for some sectors like the food industry, for example, in order to cope with market needs as well as legal requirements, it has to satisfy both safety and quality criteria for its products. And therefore, we can now say that quality management is thus the totality of functions involved in the determination and achievement of quality, including quality assurance and quality control, which of course we're going to talk about in the next video. So we've already established that quality management involves both quality control and quality assurance. Well, let's see the difference between quality assurance and quality control. As for quality assurance, it contains support and feedback, design, testing, and deployment of the product or a service. In other words, it is a way of preventing mistakes and defects in manufactured products, and it's about avoiding problems when delivering products or services to customers. As for quality control, as you can see, it involves analyzing, improving, evaluating, and the planning of the product or the service. So we're basically making sure that the product quality is maintained or is improved. Well, now to put it in words, quality assurance includes all activities designed to produce products and services of appropriate quality, and therefore quality assurance focuses on the entire quality system, including suppliers and ultimate consumers of the product or the service. As for quality control, it has a narrower focus than quality assurance. Quality control focuses on the process of producing the product or service with the intent of eliminating problems that might result in defects. So why do we use quality management? Well, according to ISO 9001, the 2015 edition or version, the primary focus of quality management is to meet customer requirements and to strive, and when we say strive, it means to try hard to exceed customer expectations. So basically, the purpose of quality management is to meet and exceed the customer's expectations. Now, let's dive a little bit more in. This is a quality management history. Before the 1900s, that was known as the craftsmanship era. This is before, of course, the Industrial Revolution. This is where services were less sophisticated and the person providing the service dealt directly with the customer. And then came the inspection era with mass production and industrialization. With the formation of factories and increasing automation, work became more repetitive. Now, the process at the time was just basically trying to fix the issues that already occur. We weren't trying to proactively find the root cause of all the issues. So we're basically just trying to fix the issues that already happened. So the inspector, which is as an I in here, so the inspector becomes the barrier between the production operation and the customer, or the process and the customer. Now, then we've got the quality control era from the 1930s to around the 1950s, and around that time American statistician Walter Shewhart realized that inspection after the event was not a good way of ensuring quality. So in his book Economic Control of Quality of Manufactured Product, he came up with the control chart, and which of course we know now as the statistical process control. And around that time, Edwards Deming also presented his SPC chart, or the statistical process control chart. And so we can say that modern quality management started from this. Now, from the 1950s to around the 1970s, that was known as the total quality management era, with Edwards Deming's 14 points and the introduction of the concept of leadership, systems thinking, the involvement and empowerment of staff. Now, from the 1970s to around the 1990s came standards and awards. So the ISO 9000, I believe the first edition of ISO 9000 was the ISO 9000, the 1987 edition. That, I think, that was the first version of the ISO 9000 family. We've got also Bald Ridge Awards and other awards. Now, from the 1990s to the present, this is known as the initiative era, with lean manufacturing and Six Sigma. Now, the reason we're talking about all this is to answer the question as to why do we need quality management, or better yet, what was wrong with traditional approaches. And so this craftsmanship era and inspection era was known as scientific management. So what was wrong with those traditional approaches? Well, as we've seen, we've got a lack of leadership. Around that time, there was a lack of leadership, and leadership is of course concerned in producing change and movement by vision, building, aligning people, and communicating according to Carter. There was also a short-term focus, or in other words, a lack of long-term focus, which is caused by stock market. As you know, the stock market prices will vary each week and each day and probably each hour. And therefore decision makers were only making short-term goals, and there was no long-term goals. And then that, as I said, that was caused by the stock market, as stock market changes each day or each hour. There was also a lack of customer focus, and we can name the Nokia example. Around 2006 or 2007, Nokia was still producing this thing, while Apple was already producing the iPhone, which of course people or the customer did not know they want until they saw it. So I believe it was Henry Ford who said, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, because sometimes the customer doesn't even know what they need or what they want until they see it. So there was a lack of customer focus with traditional approaches. There was also a lack of systems thinking. When we say systems thinking, it means the interdependency of parts, how parts are interdependent. There was also the human resources mentality, and that means that the staff of the organization was just making what the decision makers say. They would not contribute in making decisions or having anything to say at all. There was just labor work. And so a number of thinkers like Deming and Shewhart began to see that scientific management just doesn't do the job. So ISO was mentioned multiple times throughout this course, and the title of this course says ISO 9001, but we haven't truly talked about it. So first of all, ISO, which stands for the International Organization for Standardization, well, technically it was supposed to be IOFS, but of course ISO is more catchy. So ISO is an independent non-governmental organization which has 165 members, with the goal of sharing knowledge and developing voluntary consensus-based. When we say consensus-based, consensus means general agreement. So, consensus-based, market-relevant international standards that support innovation and provide solutions to global challenges. So basically, ISO is the glue that holds organizations together. And ISO 9001 is one of many international standards. It is Govind Ramo, the chair of subcommittee of ISO 9001, the 2015 edition, who said that ISO 9001-2015 is not a giant scary monster. It is a common sense approach to running any organization, and the requirements outlined in the standards are fundamental to any business. So basically, the ISO 9001 is making sure that organizations around the world are following the same line in quality management. Now, this is a history for quality standards. Around the 1960s, the US Department of Defense came with the defense standard, which is also known as the MIL-Q 9858. Now, in the early 70s, the British standard came through in, of course, different issues throughout the years. And now in 1987, the first edition of ISO 9001 came through, which of course gave birth to the ISO 9000 family or ISO 9000 series. Of course, in 1994, there was the edition, or the 1994 edition, and in 2000, and then in 2008, and then finally in 2015. And of course, each edition is just an update or an improvement to the edition before it. Now, with the 2000 edition of ISO 9001 came improved consistency with traceability and enhanced customer focus. So now we're focusing more on the customer, and we've got focused leadership. We've got now the term of leadership is being used more than before, and the involvement of people. So now the employees of an organization are not just employees who do the labor work, but also they come up with ideas. And of course, a system approach to management, continual improvement. As we said, I think in the first video or the first lesson, quality management is not an event, it is a continual event that happens over and over again. And a factual approach to decision making, and finally a mutually beneficial supplier relationships. Now, this is a document I downloaded from advisora.com showing the difference between the 2008 and the 2015 edition. Now, as we update or as we improve an edition, it has to be aligned, it has to be compliant with other management system standards. As I said, the ISO 9001 is one of many management system standards. So the last edition of ISO 9001, which is of course the 2015 edition, is now compliant, aligned, or is now compatible with the ISO 20000, which is the service management, and the ISO 22301, which is the business continuity management standard, the ISO 14001, which is the environmental management standards, and finally the ISO 20001, which is the information security management. Now, in here you'll see the difference between the 2008 and the 2015 revision or edition. So for the 2008, we've got 8 principles, 8 clauses, 6 mandatory procedures, and 26 mandatory records. As for the 2015 edition, we've got 7 principles, we've got 10 clauses, and of course we're going to talk about these principles and these clauses in the next videos, starting from the next video. We've got 6 mandatory documents, which are now not necessarily procedures, and we still got 26 mandatory records.